But this is a video that lasted the test of time and was thrown in Discord a while back. But I think the topic can still be discussed. And it's about the lack of, and this is what I took from the video, lack of originality as it relates to music production for today's music. I believe the artist was 42 Dugg that said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but a lot of the beats are just not that good from producers. And there's a gentleman on TikTok that had a pretty good breakdown as to, what he thought the actual reason was behind maybe production being somewhat stale or what I would say sounding the same. So let's watch the video. I want to make sure I shout him out. I cannot remember his name.
Is this Source, of course?
Once you shared it, I went back and did some research. He's got some good stuff.
Yeah, he made a video once. He stitched us a few times on TikTok.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I think once he said, he's like, I follow them, but they don't follow anybody, so I'm not going to follow them.
I remember you bringing that up.
And I was like,
all you had to do was tell us, brother, we'll follow.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, no, we don't follow anybody. It's just part of it. Yeah. And I told him, it's nothing personal, man. It's part
of the new old heads mystique.
Okay, you got good content.
Mysterious stuff, man.
Yeah, we're trying to be mysterious out here, okay?
I see what you did.
Let us be mysterious.
I see what you did there.
All right, let me...
Okay. People have told me that the beats today are better than they were in the past. I find that to be ludicrous. Beats might be cleaner. Production might be even more complex. But better? Better sounds great. I hate to say it. I hope I don't sound ridiculous, but regional production is not valued anymore, or nearly as much, I should say. It's like everybody wants to sing Kumbaya, my Lord, let's all sing together. And I'm not saying that everything sounds the same across the board. I'm saying a lot of the basis for a good portion of what we actually hear seems to come from a place of no home. You know what? That might be why They Not Like Us hit so hard. And it was going at a person who has no hip-hop home, necessarily. At least not in the U.S. I might be on to something.
This is what jumped out to me, because 42 Dugg basically was saying the production has declined. What he said was what jumped out to me was the regional portion as to why, because there's no sound anymore. Everything is just one big soundscape.
Kind of like we've had that discussion a few times as far as how music has transitioned to where there's no particular style where you can actually tell where people come from.
Yeah. So I think when 42 Dugg says production is the value has declined, what he just broke down might be a reason as to why, because there is nothing stands out. New York doesn't sound like New York, and Atlanta to me could just pass like two ships in the night at this point. Like there is no distinct sound anymore. Would that be fair to say? Even on the mainstream, I think everything sounds the same now.
When we're talking about production, I think what he was trying to get at as well is the simplicity of it.
That part.
And that kind of goes to what Lone was saying about how certain things chopped he can't G for because it doesn't sound produced. So in today's day and climate, especially as far as the most popular rap and things, or even music in general, you have new producers coming in and are literally chopping samples that were chopped before and are doing it the exact same way. So there's no technicality, there's no imagination, there's no thought process to it. It's literally you're copying and pasting and adding a couple more sounds to it. I agree, that's not production. So I think with 42 Dugg, he's saying he wants something else.
Yep.
Being from Detroit, Detroit, they definitely have their own style of how they rap, but in the same token, they all rap the same to these similar beats as well, because they definitely have a sound when it comes to production. And to me, their production sound is simple, but maybe he wants to get away from that. But I do agree with the aspects of things have fallen onto just being more simple, because it's easier for, I always fall back to me, to the listener and to what the general public wants. That's what they gravitate to, something that they can identify with real quick and don't have to necessarily think about it. And that's the problem with, or not necessarily the problem. That was one of the things that Kendrick was addressing with Drake, essentially. Drake is the most popular artist out here, and people identify with him like that, but the culture really ain't feeling you like that.
And you go to Atlanta when you need a hit.
Yeah.
Which goes to the point as well.
Yeah.
Good point. Like here's a part of you know, the interview where he's actually talking about it. He says, we get in that B and it takes a long time to find a good beat. It used to. We go into that B, but it's a whole new wave now. We're trying to catch a new wave, and you don't want to sound the same. You don't want to keep giving these people the same thing. That's what 42 was talking about, kind of to Terry's point. But the regional thing, I think, is what actually is missing, because
they do have I give them
they
that.
do, but I'm
they
talking
have
about
a regional sound.
Just overall, because it's good that they have one. And maybe, I'm not going to say that because the West Coast typically...
I think there's still...
do you think there's pockets of sounds?
I think there's still
on
regional,
the mainstream?
Well, I don't listen to the mainstream.
I don't either.
I can't even... I mean, the mainstream's all the same. It's just a big...
It is.
A big cesspool at this point. But I feel like, in general, like, regions still have sounds. Detroit has multiple sounds.
Okay.
The West Coast has multiple sounds.
Definitely.
Depending on where you're at. The Bay has a very specific sound.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Atlanta has a sound. I think Houston has a sound. I think New York has a sound. I think there's a bunch of sounds, but I think maybe it is just a mainstream thing, or maybe it is just like the what's hot aspect of it. I don't know.
Where you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, it's like whatever's popular right now, then any artist jumps on that wave. But to his point, these regions do have a sound. It's just easier for these other artists to come and tap into it because nobody's checking them for doing it.
And I think
it's like the Wild Wild West. I can get in there and do what I want to do now and not be reprimanded for it, or there's not going to be a diss record about me because I'm using this particular style.
But even if they're using that style, though, like, I personally don't have a problem with a person using a particular style. I think it's just a lot more accessible for people to use different styles now, because you don't have to, like, I don't know. I just feel like it's everything has become more global. Like, you can have a Memphis sound and be from Indianapolis. You know what I mean? Shouts to 𝐀𝐿𝐴.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can have, like, not everything he does, but...
No, but he's definitely from that cloth, yeah.
But you can have, like, particular sounds that you just like, and you don't have to, like, live in that area.
Yeah.
And I think that's a piece of it as well. So I feel like the regional sounds is, like, everything that we talk about that's regional now is something that was defined decades ago.
Yeah.
It's nothing new.
I agree with that.
You know what I mean? There is no new regional sounds that really, I mean, realistically.
Well, no, because when you think about the Hitmen, that was New York.
Right.
Okay. Dr. Dre, DJ Quick, that was Los Angeles.
Yeah.
The Dungeon Family, Dungeon Family wasn't doing a bunch of West Coast production or East Coast production.
Yeah, it's unique.
You were doing it for the guys that you knew, who you came up with. You know, now, like,
or anybody from Georgia.
Yeah. So now, okay, because I was just looking it up. You know, you're talking about a regional sound, like, you know, Metro Boomin's from St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, but Sexy Red does all her records with 𝐾𝐄𝐃. 𝐾𝐄𝐃 is from Tennessee.
Right.
You know, and so, like, and I know to some people that's just flyover territory, but, you know, if you've ever been, look, Memphis and Nashville have completely different sounds.
100%.
Just like, you know, if you talk to people from Houston, there's always been this thing between the South and the North, you know, so, like, you talking about regional differences in music in a particular region.
Yeah, you literally have 3 6 Mafia and 8Ball and MJG. They sound nothing alike.
Right.
They don't.
And they're both equally good.
So, I mean, but, you know, like, this is the thing now that the internet speeds is so fast.
Yeah.
And, you know, people can just hit each other up, say, hey, man, I like what you did right there. Let me see if we can make something happen. You know, you got people, there are people in New York probably want to take 𝐾𝐃 beats now.
Let me ask, that's what I was going to ask. Do you all think, just based off whatever stream you want to talk about, mainstream, underground, whatever, do you all think that in 2024, you can honestly say that New York has a sound?
No.
I don't think so.
Because what I would think is New York sound is what we just heard with the Pete Rock and Common song, but, you know, Common's rapping about Chicago.
Yeah. I think the sex still exists. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. Like,
The sex.
Oh,
Okay. Sorry.
Where's your mind?
Don't do that.
So
Don't do
freak
that.
ass boy.
Sorry.
Be a fan.
I'm not a fan. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not a fan. Go ahead, man. I'm not a fan.
The new New York sound, in my personal opinion, is Griselda. It's like they kind of
Buffalo. But yeah. Which is also, we could have the conversation as 𝗛𝗔𝗗𝗦, which is then Alchemist and Rock Marciano.
There we go.
Alchemist is from L.A.
Yeah.
And Rock Marciano's from New York, right?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know exactly, but he sounds like a New York dude.
To my knowledge, unless.
But it all's kind of derived. I feel like that's kind of the interesting part of the conversation. Like, if you're a newer dude creating a sound, it's almost always derived from
something
Where
in
you're
the past
that preceded you.
You
Yes,
know what I mean?
for sure.
So-
But
For
yeah,
sure.
but like I was literally about to say this. I see somebody said in the chat, Primo is from Texas,
Yep.
Yeah.
but his style is very New York.
Yeah.
He helped
Guru,
establish
We can
it.
even go. We can
Guru's
go on
from
to say,
Boston.
yeah,
It's the most
we
New
can go
York
on to
group
say,
ever. That neither of them are from New York.
yeah, we can go on to say that the DLC is from Texas as well.
He is.
and he was on LA. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Dr. Dre production.
True.
First album, Fire, by the way. You know what I'm saying? And he's if we're talking about regional,
Yeah. Yeah.
is just the production regional, or
I think it's just,
is it?
Yeah, I think it's just
you know-
I think it's just the sound, the overall sound. You know, I think
I would
if
say
you take
sound.
the people out, right?
And just focus on the sound as is.
Yeah. If you just
Yeah.
just what a sound is. Like Memphis has a couple sounds.
Mm-hmm.
You can be from Memphis and make New York style beats.
Right.
It's not necessarily Pete Rock style beats or whatever style beats. I feel like it's the region style
Yeah.
beats. And I think until we've had this we've been talking about this off and on for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until today where I really kind of thought it's really just it's less about the producer and more about just the region and what embodies and what pushes the culture around said region.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like because Primo was from Texas, but he made New York style beats.
Right.
Like nothing about
You know.
Primo's production makes you think about anything in Texas.
Yeah, that's what I
Nothing.
mean. Just-
Yeah, no, I follow you. I'm
Like
you're 100% right.
you and I have a particular sound. They're similar, but they're not the same.
right. And we grew up in the same area.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, and I don't know if I would say that our style is Indiana
That's true.
because I feel
It's
like
a melting pot.
That's a good
but
point.
I still feel like Indiana has a very kind of interesting type of sound that I don't.
It's
there are
hard to
people-
define.
It's hard to
Yeah.
define.
See, that's what I was
You know
going to
I mean?
ask. I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask, let's narrow it down to something that we are all very well versed in, or damn near you could say experts in at this point, and that's the Midwest
Right.
as a whole. Lived in Chicago,
And
like
Midwest
listened
make
to
the
it.
world go round at the end of the day.
Thank
Yep.
you. So is it more of just, because what I've always grown up to believe is the Midwest is the melting pot. So there's multiple facets and different
There
things and
is.
areas of sounds.
Serious. I was
So
actually
I
going
don't
to
know-
bring this up too
Go ahead, bro.
with ASAP Rocky. His
Mm-hmm.
first album is very Ohio influenced. The whole, it sounds like a Bone Thugs album at the end of the day.
Good
Production,
call.
I don't know where's Muggs from.
DJ
DJ
Muggs.
Muggs is
Yeah.
from,
He's from like California.
Yeah.
I believe, he's from.
He's a soul assassin. So
Yeah,
Sure
yeah,
is.
so that's
Sure
true.
is.
He constructed a sound that's true to Bone Thugs and Harmony.
DJ Muggs from Cypress Hill.
Not Muggs. Who's the,
No, I'll
the
look it up.
producer for a lot of Bone stuff? I
You
want to
DJ
say it
Unique?
was Unique.
DJ
Okay.
Unique.
Unique. Okay, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah, I thought, he's from Ohio, isn't he?
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I don't know.
But
I don't know.
he formulated a sound that's true to Bone Thugs and Harmony.
yeah.
A$AP Rocky's first album is very Bone Thugs and Harmony inspired.
Yeah, I can hear that.
But the raps on it are him being himself
Mm-hmm.
behind this Ohio style production. So would you consider that a New York album based on lyrically, or is it still
There we
Yeah.
go.
LA? Okay.
DJ
Okay.
Unique is LA.
Okay.
I don't know, Terry. I feel like this is where I feel like we're having like this. I almost feel like this is a hypothetical conversation that we're having because like I don't really feel like it matters. Generally speaking, right? Like I know some people really think that regional type sounds and music matter, and maybe it does, and maybe I'm just wrong. That's fine, but I personally, I've never really subscribed to it, and I think just because of as a musician in general, I just make the stuff as a musician that I like. And if I live in Anderson, Indiana, or if I live in Indianapolis or Chicago or LA or freaking a different country, I'm going to still make the music that I like.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to establish the music that I like in whatever place that I'm at.
You know what though?
So,
Without borders, essentially.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what though?
It's positionless
The-
basketball.
Good call.
Yeah, that's a good.
The only pushback that I would say, this is me knowing you. I do not think your overall approach of music and what you make in terms of what you like and your versatility would change. But if I think you and I grew up in LA as opposed to where we grew up at,
Right.
there may be a slight West Coast bias into what we do as we branch
But
out.
I hear
you see
more,
what I'm saying?
I hear more West Coast influence on your production.
Oh, I love the West Coast.
versus Lone's production.
That's
It just depends on what I decide to make, though.
But
Right.
But I would agree. I would agree with that. But I am definitely somebody who definitely utilizes a lot of funk elements as well.
For sure.
And
that's to our point. That's Midwest music.
It's the melting pot.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I feel like it has its place just because it's like historical. It's like it was established. Like when hip hop came out, there were distinct different types of hip hop sounds, and that's just baked into the fundamental nature of what hip hop is today. I don't think that that's ever going to change, but I don't know if it really matters. I don't know. I guess I'm like this.
Maybe it doesn't matter as much as it used to. I will say I enjoyed coming up in an era where there were multiple styles of music.
But they still exist.
No, I'm not saying they don't, but I feel like it was pushed more to the forefront when we were coming up versus now.
Because people stayed true to it. It was more
That's
so
what I'm about.
they didn't want to sound like another region.
That's what I'm talking about.
We want to sound like where we're from.
Yeah.
We appreciate y'all for sounding like where you're from.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, Biggie's second album, I want to sell records like Snoop. I don't want to sound like Snoop,
right?
Yeah.
But I want to sell records like Snoop.
That's the part I think is gone, what he just said.
And I think, again, goes down to, I think it was, I don't know who mentioned this, but again, I think it was you, Terry. Are we speaking on the music part of it? Or are we speaking on the lingo and how people are talking?
Right.
Because those are two different things. Because if we're talking about the music aspect, I think me as a person that's making music, I just make whatever I feel. But as somebody who's writing, I feel like you're going to pull from your area a lot more. Especially when I was writing, you're going to pull from the things around you a lot more. So maybe that comes out a little bit more. But I feel like the conversation typically stems around production sound.
But when you talk about production, everybody talks about, the West Coast being more influenced by funk, by Zapp and Roger, who are from the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And you a lot of times when you talk about what sound they gravitated towards, they weren't West Coast sounds initially. Right. I can't.
They adopted it.
That's what they adopted. And like I saw Snoop talking about how much they loved EPMD because EPMD would work in those same kind of funk sounds that the West Coast producers, that they had gravitated towards too. Yeah. But like I said, a lot of times it's just it is really about what you gravitate towards, because okay, this is what we're going to sample from over here. We're going to sample from these jazz records. And some of those, technically, that's a down south sound. Mm-hmm. That's a Midwest sound. A lot of those jazz artists were from New York, of course, or they made their homes in New York, but that's not where they're originally from. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about regional music, especially when we're talking about sample-based production, you almost can't assign a region. I mean, you can just based on who did what and when,
or how they freak it.
Yeah, but at the same time, like the music that you got wasn't, that you created from, that you used as a base, it wasn't from the West Coast. The music that you got wasn't technically from the East Coast. It's just how you created your process that might have made it. And to where people feel it's indigenous to the West Coast, to the East Coast, or even to the South. But the music that you took from, what you sampled from, what you inspired by, comes from everywhere in this country. And sometimes it comes from outside of the country. So it's
a lot more than people think. It comes
it's kind of crazy how we assign regionality, if that's a word, to music when the influences come from everywhere.
And I think that's my problem with the conversation. Mm-hmm. Like that's generally it. It's like, all that being said, like the inspirations come from so many different areas, but areas still do typically have the sound.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just
because I just remember I made a mix for this couple. They were from Detroit, and like that Detroit has its own vibe as far as like this dance music that I do not feel at all. I do not like it at all.
They have a lot of
and when I was making this, I was like, okay, I see the people from Detroit liking this, but I see the other, because you hear it kind of spread out in the BMF TV show a little bit, but like the rest of it, I'm like, this ain't it.
You know who put me onto that? Shout out to the homie Tall Black Guy. He said, you don't know nothing about this. I said, I didn't.
I said, I sure don't.
Look, man, people don't realize that like techno was born in Detroit.
Yes.
I mean, just like we have techno, we have Parliament Funkadelic recorded their albums there.
Yeah,
Motown is literally there. You know what I mean? Like,
and all this gives peace to the Midwest.
It's definitely Midwest, man.
Yep, it all gives peace to the Midwest.
And a lot of that runs down. That highway that runs right down to Columbus you know, like in the northern part of Ohio as well. You know, so the Midwest is really kind of the fueling of a lot
Talk
of the
to him,
sound.
Long.
Absolutely.
Look, Terry been saying that.
I remember when the first party I went to when I got to college, and they're playing, like, I knew a little bit about house music because when I go to little Chicago, Jack and Jill parties, the girls would play that, and I'd be like, this sound like music from Super Mario Brothers. Oh,
Hold on.
What we get?
okay, all right.
TikTok being a
Yeah. No, but I just remember the first time I heard like the percolator.
Mm-hmm.
I was
man.
like, because I was like, we didn't do this in St. Louis. It sounded like
So we actually rock with that here.
See,
We did.
yeah, but when I first time I heard it, I said it sounded like some stuff from Super Mario Brothers. I was very like not into it.
What if I told you I have video evidence of Lone dancing to the percolator? Would you believe me?
No,
See, he know what it is.
I mean I know what it is now. I see the value in it now because like when I went to the first party when I got to SIU Carbondale, they played house music all night, and I heard it was like I beat that bat and all that, and I was like, this ain't. I was like, when you gonna play some gangster raps that I can kind of groove to?
I mean,
but once again, it was because like I was partying with people from a region that was not my own. So like, there was stuff that if I'd have played it, they'd have been like, get this out of here.
True.
But when I heard that, and now I have an appreciation for house music, and I know the history, and like, I was like, oh, this is how this came about. But when I first heard it, I was like, no.
Living in Chicago put me on game. Go ahead, Long. Sorry.
yeah, no, I was just going to say, like, back to the point of like the Midwest being the fundamental backbone of a lot of this stuff, like, house music from techno to Italo house to all the house types, styles of house music that formed in Europe. There's a direct correlation of that coming from Chicago-based house music. So even when you talk about dance music and how that invaded Europe, like a lot of people, like if you don't know any better, you think, oh yeah, it's just this music the white people dance to. It was not. It's black music.
No.
Like, so I don't know. The Midwest is behind a lot of this, and so I guess it depends on how far back you want to go on a lot of these samples and a lot of these originations and stuff like that. But regions do have sounds, and that's cool.
And at the end of the day, I guess producers need to stop being lazy. So 42 Dugg can get out of his box and
Send that boy some heat, man. Stop sending him the same thing.
I think he just needs to look in better places because there are plenty of people out here that are making.
he's from Detroit.
I'm just saying.
Lone is right, though.
Black Milk is in his backyard.
I don't see.
14 KT is in his backyard.
They are.
Sometimes you just have to expand your musical palette because it's going to bring something different out of you, and that's why I kind of
Killer's right up.
Detroit gave us Jay Diff.
I applied Lil Yachty for pretty much stepping outside of his comfort zone and getting production that isn't like I can't easily identify that this is a Lil Yachty song until he starts rapping.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, that's cool. He's trying to step outside, actually make himself better because it makes him be a different type of writer.
I gave him peas for that too. I own that project. I remember. I gave him.
And maybe with 42 Dugg, I don't know, but I know he's a newer age Detroit rapper. Is he one of the dudes that raps super ahead of the beat as well?
I mean, he's Detroit style.
So maybe he can work with some of these really amazing producers if he finds where the pocket is.
You couldn't help it, could you? You couldn't. You just can't. You can't help it. You can't help it.
The thing about them is, and I will give them credit for this, and I'm one of them people that may have missed the boat. Some of it is cool, some of it's not, in my personal opinion. But I know a lot of people that really rock with that sound.
Oh yeah,
and they can't wait to hear whatever's new out. Like if they're coming in town, they'll tell you, "Oh, such and such is performing here," and it's like I have no clue.
It's an entire generation of people that have ADHD and need music made for their ADHD.
That's
because
tough,
they can't wait on the pocket, so they need it right away.
And on that,
Boss Man D-Lo is kind of the same though, and he's not from Detroit.
ADHD is not region specific.
Yeah, you're right.
that is a
That's
great
terrible.
place for us to run the partners, bro.